Morning light spilled through the shattered windows of the factory. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts, glowing in the pale sunlight. After the long night of fighting, the building was quiet again. Too quiet. Anna stood near the broken entrance and looked out at the empty streets. The massive horde that had attacked during the night had moved on, leaving only scattered corpses across the factory yard. Behind her, the survivors slowly woke from the short, restless sleep. Mark stretched his sore arms and looked around the ruined factory floor. "Well, we're still alive," he said. Jenna walked past the bodies of the fallen undead, carefully stepping over broken machinery and scattered weapons. "I didn't think this place would still be standing." Tim climbed down from the platform and stared at the battlefield they had created. There were dozens of zombies lying across the floor. Some burned, some crushed, some torn apart during the desperate fight. Anna turned back toward the group. "We were lucky," she said. Mark shook his head. "That wasn't luck. That was survival." But Anna wasn't smiling, because she knew something the others didn't. The factory wasn't safe. Not really. It had only survived the night. And in this world, night always returned. The survivors gathered their remaining supplies in the center of the factory. The mood was heavy. 2 of their people had been bitten during the battle. One of them had already turned. Mark had been forced to end it quietly while the others looked away. Now only a small group remained. Anna, Mark, Jenna, Tim, and 3 others who had managed to survive the siege. They checked their weapons. Ammo was dangerously low. Food supplies were barely enough for a few days. "This place won't last," Jenna said. Anna nodded. "The noise last night probably pulled every zombie in the district." Mark walked toward the broken wall where the horde had entered. Beyond it, the streets were still silent. But silence in the apocalypse never meant safety. It meant waiting. Then Tim spoke quietly. "What if we don't stay here?" Everyone looked at him. "What do you mean?" Mark asked. Tim pointed toward a large metal grate on the factory floor. "I saw something earlier," he said. "There's a tunnel under the factory." The group exchanged uneasy glances. Underground tunnels could mean escape. Or something far worse. Anna stepped toward the grate. "Let's find out." The metal grate was old and rusted, partially hidden beneath a conveyor belt that had collapsed during the battle. Mark pried it open with a crowbar. The sound of grinding metal echoed through the factory. Below them, darkness waited. A narrow ladder descended into a tunnel lit only by faint emergency lights. The air rising from below was cold and damp. Jenna wrinkled her nose. "That smells awful." Anna leaned closer and listened. Nothing. No movement. No sounds. Just silence. Tim looked nervous. "What if there are zombies down there?" Mark shrugged. "There could be zombies anywhere." Anna grabbed a flashlight. "If this tunnel connects to the sewer system or subway lines, it could lead us out of the city." She turned to the others. "But tight spaces are dangerous. If something goes wrong down there." She didn't finish the sentence. They all understood. Once you went underground, there was nowhere to run. Anna climbed down first. Her boots hit the concrete floor of the tunnel with a hollow echo. The others followed one by one. The underground passage stretched in 2 directions beneath the factory. Old pipes lined the walls. Water dripped slowly from the ceiling. The emergency lights flickered weakly, barely illuminating the corridor. "This looks like an old maintenance tunnel," Mark said. Anna studied the walls. "It probably connects to the city's sewer system." Tim shivered. "I don't like it down here." Jenna checked the darkness ahead with her flashlight. Neither direction looked safe. But staying in the factory wasn't safe either. Anna pointed left. "We go that way." The survivors began walking deeper into the underground tunnels. Behind them, the factory faded into darkness. And above their heads, the ruined world continued to rot. The tunnel seemed endless. Their footsteps echoed softly through the narrow concrete corridor as they moved deeper underground. Water dripped from rusted pipes above them, forming small puddles along the floor. Every sound felt louder down here. Too loud. Mark kept his rifle raised as he walked. "Feels like we're walking into a grave," he muttered. Jenna shined her flashlight across the walls. Old maintenance signs hung crookedly beside faded warning symbols. "This place hasn't been used in years," she said. Tim suddenly stopped. "Did you hear that?" Everyone froze. For a moment there was nothing. Then, a faint scraping sound echoed through the tunnel ahead. Anna raised her hand. "Lights off." The flashlights went dark. The group stood silently in the dim emergency glow, listening. The scraping came again. Something was moving down there. Slow, dragging, and getting closer. Anna slowly switched her flashlight back on and pointed it down the tunnel. The beam cut through the darkness and illuminated a figure stumbling toward them. A zombie. But it wasn't alone. More shapes began appearing behind it, crawling out of side passages and maintenance doors. The underground wasn't empty after all. It was full. "Back up," Mark whispered. Gunshots underground would echo like explosions. But they didn't have much choice. The first zombie lunged forward. Anna smashed its skull with the wrench she still carried from the factory battle. Another stumbled toward Jenna. She fired an arrow. The arrow pierced its eye and dropped it instantly. But the tight corridor made fighting difficult. More undead pushed forward from the darkness. Mark fired once. The sound thundered through the tunnel, making everyone flinch. The zombie dropped. But the echo rolled through the underground passages like a warning signal. Anna cursed under her breath. "That's going to attract more." They began retreating slowly down the tunnel while fighting. The narrow corridor forced the zombies to approach one at a time. That was the only advantage they had. But even with that advantage, the dead kept coming. And the sound of the gunshot had awakened something deeper in the tunnels. As they ran deeper into the tunnel, the ground suddenly trembled. A loud cracking noise echoed through the concrete walls. "What now?" Tim shouted. Before anyone could answer, a section of the tunnel ceiling collapsed behind them. Dust and rubble exploded into the corridor, sealing the path they had just come from. The survivors stared at the new wall of debris. Their escape route was gone. Jenna looked pale. "So, we're trapped." Anna turned toward the only remaining direction. "Not trapped," she said. "Just one way forward." And that direction led deeper into the underground darkness. The tunnel eventually opened into a large underground chamber. Water covered most of the floor. Old pipes hung from the ceiling like tangled roots. The chamber looked like part of an abandoned pumping station. Anna stepped carefully into the shallow water. Ripples spread across the surface. "This must connect to the city sewer lines," Mark said. Tim pointed across the chamber. "There's another tunnel." But before they could move, something splashed in the water. Everyone froze. The water moved again. Then a gray hand slowly rose from beneath the surface. The undead were here too. The water erupted as several zombies suddenly emerged from beneath the surface. Their clothes were soaked and rotting, the skin pale and bloated from long exposure to the underground water. "Move!" Anna shouted. The survivors ran through the flooded chamber while the undead stumbled after them. Water splashed loudly with every step, making it impossible to stay quiet. Jenna turned and fired one of her last arrows, dropping a zombie that had nearly grabbed Tim. Mark fired twice more, each shot echoing like thunder across the chamber. But more figures were rising from the water. The underground tunnels were full of them. Creatures that had wandered down here months ago and never left. Anna pointed toward the far tunnel. "Go!" They sprinted through the water, barely staying ahead of the pursuing dead. Behind them, dozens of shapes were climbing out of the flooded chamber. The tunnel finally opened into something unexpected. Train tracks. The survivors had reached an abandoned subway station beneath the city. Rust covered everything. Old train cars sat frozen on the tracks like ghosts from the past. Anna stared at the platform. "This could lead us out of Haven." Mark looked down the dark tunnel where the tracks disappeared. Or straight into another nightmare. Tim climbed onto the platform and looked around. "Which way do we go?" Anna studied the tracks. One direction sloped upward, toward the surface. "That way," she said. As they began walking along the tracks, a distant noise echoed through the subway tunnel. At first it sounded like wind. Then it grew louder, a low rumbling sound. The survivors stopped. Mark frowned. "That's not wind." The rumbling grew stronger, and then they realized what it was. Movement. Hundreds of footsteps echoing through the underground tunnels. The gunshots and chaos had awakened something massive. A horde was moving through the subway system. And it was heading straight for them. Anna didn't hesitate. "Run!" The survivors sprinted along the tracks, their flashlights bouncing wildly across the tunnel walls. Behind them, the distant growls of the undead were growing louder. The subway tunnel became their escape route. But it also became a race against death. The darkness ahead felt endless. But stopping was not an option. Because the underground horde was gaining on them. Finally they saw light ahead. A stairway leading upward toward the surface. Hope. Tim ran ahead and pushed open the heavy metal door at the top. Sunlight burst into the tunnel. Fresh air rushed in. They had found a way out. The survivors climbed out of the underground tunnels and stepped into a new part of the ruined city. The streets here were strangely quiet. No zombies. No movement. For the first time in days. The air felt peaceful. Anna turned back toward the subway entrance. The distant sounds of the underground horde was still echoing below. But they had escaped. For now. The survivors stood silently in the empty street. Behind them was Haven. Ahead of them was an unknown world. Mark looked at Anna. "So, what now?" Anna stared toward the distant horizon. "We keep moving. Because survival wasn't about finding safety. It was about never stopping." And somewhere out there, hope might still exist.